Hello, loves, back again with another video. Today we're going to talk about types of maps. This is your homework, which you are supposed to go over and create a map for each of these types of maps and put them on for the Western Hemisphere. So if you're confused about a map, there's the definition below. You could just click on it and it'll tell you. Let's get started. Political maps. Political maps of the Western Hemisphere. These are countries. Their lines are shown sometimes straight. If a country was created by a king or a queen, and they just made a line along the latitude and longitude lines. Some countries are separated by mountains or other barriers. This Mexico between the United States, part of it is a political map drawn with a straight line, the other is the Rio Grande River. The Rio Grande River, south of it is Mexico, north is the United States. So a political map will have different colors for each country. They mean absolutely nothing, and it doesn't give you a lot of the land features, especially mountains. The next map we're looking at is a physical map. This gives you different types of land coverings. Here you can see this is tundra and sheets of ice. Here the darker green is lower, lighter green a little higher up, blue is water. This brown is higher elevation but mostly flat prairies. And then as you get here, it's mountains, the darker brown. Some of the light parts are snow on top of the peaks. This shows you Africa as a giant desert here. And then down here, it's actually quite mountainous, also along this area. Most of Europe, very green, lower, not a lot of mountains in this area, not the big ones. That's a physical geography map. Mountain ranges, rivers, things like that. Next, we have a climate map. This gives you different types of zones of climate. So the red would be an equatorial zone, which means it doesn't change very much. The weather's pretty consistent. As you go further out, you get to this between the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn. It's all very, climate is quite mild, let's say. Not a lot going on, very warm, tropical-ish. The tropical is actually the yellow, which comes out a little further, and that gives us tropical zones. Then we go further out, subtropical, which is this greenish color, which is outside of the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn. This part of Australia, say. Then we get into temperate zones, which are right here, where most people from Europe are, parts of Russia and China, and half of the United States, and a little piece of Canada. Then subpolar, which is this Arctic Circle area, a little bit dipped down here, and then this part of Russia, then the blue, which would be the polar zone. That tells us a lot about what the weather is like, what the climate is, what things grow there, what things live there. We can learn a lot from that. Next, we have street maps. When you're doing a street map, you can't really do Western Hemisphere. It would be much too busy. So we just picked a city. This one is Toronto. You could see the streets on here. This tells you where parks are, traffic lights. There's a walking tool, looks to be available. Those kind of things. Here's the harbor. This is nice to see where you go to get somewhere, what streets you take, what streets are popular. But nowadays we mostly use Google Maps, which would tell me traffic patterns, traffic areas. It would tell you how long to get somewhere. It also would tell you if there's construction or a road closed or a one-way road. This gives you a lot more information, which could be updated momentarily, where a street map, once it's printed, is hard to update. Next is we have a relief map. The relief map is quite beautiful. It shows you sticking up in 3D places that are mountains and higher up, then lower spots, which are lower down. These are the Himalayas, for instance. So you could see the Indian continent. The Indian plate is just smashing into the Asian plate, and that pushes those mountains up right there. Along what we're talking about, the Western Hemisphere, there are plates all the way along here. They combined, and that is giving us these mountain protrusions. Very hilly, mountainy area on this plate. Along these plates, the crack, the fault. If we look now at topographical maps, these are like the map before, but not 3D. Instead, they use coloring to create a 3D effect. It is worth noting, if you look in this area, the water has different heights, which means if water levels went all the way down during an ice age, more land would be in this area, which changes a lot of things because people could live on it. If we look at this type, this shows elevation and the topography. So each of these blobs is a different height, 1,500, 1,600, 1,700, 1,800 feet. The closeness of the lines tells you you are going up from 300 feet to, say, 800 feet in a very short space, where this area goes up in a very long space. So this would be like walking through the valley and going up. This would be more like rock climbing, very close, linked together. So in, say, 300 feet, you go up 800 feet in elevation. Next, we have a weather map, which obviously tells you the weather. This is very beautiful, and it tells you, this line tells you where the freezing zones are. So freezing weather would be in Anchorage in this area here. As the weather dips down, the cold air dips down, it gets colder in the cities. Next, we have a precipitation map. This, if you notice on the bottom, has the months of the year, so you can see how precipitation changes throughout the year. It's very dry during these months, which is represented by red. Then it gets a little wetter, which is the blue areas. So you can see blue spreading over areas. That is the rainy season. Now we will go to population maps. There are several different kinds you could choose from. They all give you the same information, how many people live in an area. A yellow dot means over 1 million. A golden dot means 500,000. Over 500,000, but less than 1 million. So you can see in India or China or Japan, lots of people pushed into a small area. As we look at China and Russia, lots of space between the dots. If we look at Africa, most of the people live right here in the Western Africa area, and up here in the Horn of Africa, you could see South Africa, the country is right down here where lots of people live, but then no one lives really in the desert parts here, the Sahara Desert, but people live along the coast. You could see Egypt right here, which is the Nile River. Most people, over 90% of the people, live along the Nile River. The rest of Egypt is just desert. Nobody lives there. If we look at South America, you could see people live along the coasts where water is. Not a lot of people in the center. This would be the Andes Mountains and the Amazon forest. So not a lot of people, very sparse. Greenland, hardly anyone lives there, not even a million city. If you look at Canada, people live along the borders with America, or the United States, I should say, and those are the biggest cities. The rest of Canada, very unpopulated. If we look at the United States, the East Coast, Chicago, Michigan, very populated. As we go west, once we hit the Mississippi River, very few people on the other side, Denver being the main city in the center. Then Salt Lake City, then we have California, lots of people, and then a lot of people in Seattle. Down here, we look at Mexico, populated along the coasts, and then a lot of people coming onto the southern part, lots of people in Central America, and that pretty much tells you the story. These two islands, Cuba and Dominican Republic and Haiti, very populated for a small space, lots of people there. If we look at this actually gives us a city with the bar graph. So I could tell on each block how many people live there. We could assume the center one is a lower income area because there are more apartments, smaller apartments, more people living there. Where if it's a nicer neighborhood with richer people, they have bigger apartments and less people in a building. As we get out here, we have more houses, and then people live on a block. That's a city. Let's look at population over time. This gives you from 2000 BC to 1900. You could watch as people grow and grow cities. Dark red would be over 500,000 people, which happens in India and China first, and then in this part of Europe. 1 AD, you could see there are still people in all countries in the New World before Columbus gets there. Then, at the peak of the Aztecs, they have a city that is over 1 million people, more like 10 million. Then you watch the colonies form across the coast, the 13 colonies, which then start to expand. And then we have the Louisiana Purchase, which spreads everyone to past the Mississippi River. So watch this again right there, and then the expansion, westward expansion. If I look at one more, this would give you world populations in a bar graph sticking out of a globe. So it looks like a spiky little fellow, but you could see America, Asia, lots of cities, lots of people, and lots of people in different parts of the Western Hemisphere down at the bottom and the top. Then finally, different events in human history, a GIF going from year 1 up to the year 2000, with events like the Silk Road. You could see the expansion of people as it goes. You'll also see right now, it'll have the Black Death, the plague, which will be on here, which is the only time in human history where the numbers went down. More people were dying right there than were being born. The rest of the civilization is not like that, the Roman Empire there. And as it goes, 1 million people, you'll see when the Aztecs take power in this area right here. And the Incas down here, that was the Maya who were there first. And then the expansion after Columbus comes to the New World. So right here, we'll watch the Aztecs in a moment. They are around 1200, 1300, 1400. So right there is the Mayans. Here is the Aztecs. And again, here are the Inca. So you just watched them pop up. And then Columbus lands here, starts the expansion of the New World, and that populates through. And finally, you should be creating a resource map. This shows natural resources, gold, copper, petroleum, coal, uranium, those kind of things, and where they're located, which countries have more or less. You can see copper is very popular along South America. Those are mountains that were pushed up from the ground so that Earth has different resources. Next and last, we look at the biomes or vegetation map. This tells you the Arctic biome, the jungle biome, the forest biome, the desert biome, etc. It's very easy to make out where things are very green in the Amazon River, where things are very dry and mountainous along the Rockies, and the Andes Mountains, which go into Chile. Those are your maps. The final one is just a fun map. Put something on there that you enjoy. All your work could be just a copy of the slideshow, then replacing my maps with Western Hemisphere maps, which is the easiest way to go. Populations, you only need one map, not 5. I just got a bit carried away, dears. That's all you need to know. Hopefully you are understanding. If you have any questions, please contact me, dear. And that is all for today. Remember to subscribe, and bye-bye.